for us automatically. So as a practitioners, we need to ask the questions and raising doubt. We don't attach ourselves to anything, even attach ourselves to the pre-thinking aspect of the mind. When we have an objective for us to attach to, that's still the ego or the attachment. As the true Dharma, we need to detach ourselves from everything. The knowledge, the ignorance of this mind is a differentiation that causing the dualism. It's just like the circle of birth and death is a disease that suffer this life. And when we detach ourselves from the circle of birth and death, which means we reach our Buddha nature. We don't establish anything during the practice. When we detach ourselves from everything, which means the knowledge is not the knowledge anymore. In order to get to that state of mind, we must do the practice. We just practice. We don't just talk the talk, but we walk the walk. And that is the topic for this week. If you have any questions or want to share your experience, go ahead and speak up. Pháp Hỷ, go ahead. I'd like to share my experience in practice. During the practice, I always look back on myself and look back to what you have taught us in the Dharma talk. Previously, I always thought when we practice, asking questions and raising doubts, and I thought that the practice. But when I look back to your Dharma talk, when I asked you about how can we break the self-attachment, and when I practice, I feel like I still have the sadness, the happiness, and everything from outside still there. And I feel like it's not right. It's not the right practice. But when I listen to like what Zen Master words about you need to be clear, and in your practice need to be clear. When I have a thought in my mind, I still see that thought, but I need to still go back to the practice. But when I see my thoughts, I just go back to the practice, and my practice becomes so easy. And just like that, I continue on my practice. I don't have to do anything too much, and just practice. When I practice, I don't ask for anything. I don't pay attention to the achievement, and I'm not fearing of anything. And when I look back, I feel like the previous practice that I was trying to do was not the right practice. And because I attach myself to the practice too much, and that what I feel like a problem. Could you give me some word of encouragement on this? When we practicing, it's just like we swimming in the oceans of circle of birth and death. It's just like a merge. We going into the merge, we will be dirty. But when we know how to get out the merge, we get out of the ignorance, the differentiations, then that's our job. It's just like the ignorance that we dealing with. It's just like an octopus or the articles always attached to something. So our mind is the same. It's always attached to something. When we have the guidance to get out the mess, we must do all that we can in order to go out of that mess. So we need to overcome all the challenges when we get out of that mess. When we realize that our practice has some progress, that is also the knowing aspect of mind. When we go back to our practice, which means we go in just one direction, one actions, one practice, which means we believe in our own Buddha nature. Our patriarch said that we only use one method in order to walk toward our goal. When we still attach to something, which means we're going on the wrong path. That's why we relied on the three jewels of Buddhism to help us on the way to our goal. As the Buddha and the patriarch said that the right Buddha have to detach ourselves from all the thinking. When you attach to the right, that's still a attachment. When you attach to the wrong, that's also the attachment. The only thing that we need to do here is to keep that doubt ongoing. It doesn't mean that we become a rock. The not knowing of the doubt is not like the not knowing of a rock. When we said that, knowledge is not the knowledge. That is, doesn't mean that we don't have the knowledge. When we use the wisdom of the Buddha nature, we need to detach ourselves from everything that going on in this mind. That's why we need to do the practice diligently. And when we hear asking the questions clearly, and when we attach ourselves to that asking questions clearly, which means we're still having some attachment. Those are just the means that the patriarch used to explain about practice. We don't attach ourselves to those words. We don't attach ourselves to any explanations. The Zen master, Lai Quả, always remind us to ask the questions clearly when doing a practice, and he always said so. Keeping your practice, one action, one practice, and just go back to the practice. That's all we do. When we're living in a monastery, sometimes we feel like we don't want to hear any of these Dharma talk anymore. Why we just have to listen to these repeat Dharma all the times? It's just because we have the habit of attach ourselves to anything that we hear, anything that we see. That's why the reminder is there to help us to go back to the practice. That's why the patriots always remind us to go back to the practice. But when we practice, we always attach to the achievement, and we consider the achievement is our practice. And we going into the dualistic aspect of the mind, the good, the bad, the progress, the not progress. All of these are just the knowledge, and we don't attach ourselves to them. When we still attach ourselves to these knowledge, which means we still in the dualistic aspect of the mind. That's why we said that we need to focus on the doubt. We need to focus on the pre-thinking aspect of the mind. But when we still having the thinking, when still having these thoughts in the mind, which means we are not reaching that goal yet. Like our patriarch said that we always attach to the words, we're not walking at all. We must walk the walk, not only talk the talk. Because when we have a belief fully in our Buddha nature, we just practice until the doubt has big enough, then it will be busted and we will see our own Buddha nature. Or the ignorance or the habits will be swept up completely. That is the Buddha nature. When we listen to the explanations of the wisdom, the prajna, we attach ourselves to that. We want to achieve that prajna, which means we already have the interference to our practice. This mind is really tricking us all the times. Only our practice can help us to detach ourselves from all these tricks. That's why we need to detach ourselves from all the objectives thinking. And in order to do so, we need to practice. We must ask questions and raising doubt. Knowing and not knowing, we don't attach ourselves to. And when we still attach to something, which means we still in the dualistic aspect of mind, we still in the differentiations. When you keep asking the questions and raising doubt, we don't attach ourselves to anything. So as a practitioners, we always look back to ourselves, to our practice, based on the Dharma talk. We go back to our practice and see if we still attach ourselves to anything. When we thought that our practice is progressing, that is also the knowing of the mind, and just come back to the practice, asking questions and raising doubt. No matter what time, night or day, use the doubt as a water to wash your face. Use the doubt as a blanket at night to keep you from the cold. In all activities during the day or night, asking questions and raising doubts. It's not like a suppressions or the oppressions of the thoughts. We don't pay attention to these thoughts at all. We don't put in the mind of trying or need to do so or not need to do so when we do in a practice. When we completely in the practice, everything surrounding us just not affecting our practice at all. Just like Quả Zen Master share in his experience in practicing, those are his experience because of the circle of birth and death, the belief in the Buddha nature. He can do so. We have not reached that level yet. That's why we still asking questions and raising doubts. we need to value the doubt. And that's all we do. Miss Hai, go ahead. As you said, about the differentiation or discriminations, those are very clear. However, those are just the talk, but the walk is more important. When we facing the real situations, we always in the differentiation or discriminations. It's just like when we said that when we practicing the patriarch Zens, which means we asking the questions and raising doubt the whole day. However, when we said so, which means we have a mistaken in the understanding. When I said that when I practice and I always asking questions and raising doubt in all activities, sometimes in the dealing with the daily living, we always thought that we are practicing. However, we still having these differentiation, the discriminations from outside interfere with our practice. I'd like to ask you some words of encouragement to help me to practice in order to repay my life in the monastery. When you do the practice, and if you don't want to get the interference from all the activities from outside, you must follow the precepts. You must rely on the precepts in order to detach yourself from all the habits. It doesn't mean that you just follow the precepts, but you must do the practice in order to follow the precepts. You must make a vow in practice. Just practice truly. It's not only based on the form of practice, only the talk, but we truly do in the practice. When we listen to the Buddha words, the patriarch explanations, we use that as a reminder to go back to our practice. Don't attach ourselves to those words. When we still in the dream, we need to wake up from the dream in order to leave all the dream behind. It's lucky that we have met the true Dharma from the Buddha. These methods of practice will help us to wake up from that open eye dreaming. That's why we relied on the three jewels of Buddhism. We relied on our master. We listen to the Dharma talk. in order to stay away from those ignorance, those habits, and just go back to the practice. When we said nothing to ask for, nothing to achieve, nothing to fear of, those are just the words. We need to go back to the practice in order to achieve those words, meanings. That's why when we are still having these thinking in the mind, we still need to do the practice. We still need to listen to the Dharma talk. These are just a reminder for us to practice. The more we practice, the more we believe in our own Buddha nature. It's just like the more we practice, the more we get closer to our goal. When we believe in our Buddha nature, we always look back on our practice and use those mistakes that we saw and realize as a reminder to go back to our practice more and more. We don't just try to show off our practice. When we listen to the Buddha words, when we listen to the explanation from the page you at, we don't attach ourselves to them. We don't try to explain what does the meanings of those words. Just go back to the practice, use them as the reminder to go back to your practice, and that will help you to go toward your goal. If you attach yourself to these words and try to explain these words without practicing, which means you going directly to hell, you going on the wrong path of practicing. So as a practitioners, we always asking questions and raising doubt. We value the doubt, and that's nothing else that we're doing. Thank you for your words. We're running out of time.